Well, hello everyone, welcome back to Primal Prepper, or welcome if it is your first time here. Yes, slightly different angle. You're getting to see one of my things I've made. Anyway, yeah, I don't know why I'm so nervous about doing videos for Primal Prepper. I mean, I do my tarot reading channel, I jump in, I just do the tarot reads and off I go. I don't know why I'm nervous about doing Primal Prepper, but there you go. I put these videos off and off because I don't know, I just feel, I don't know. But anyway, today we are going to make some lard, but I'm not just literally going to show you how to make lard. I'm going to make it into a little bit of a story. I'm just taking a little humble ham. Yes, unfortunately it was shop bought. It weren't butchered, and well, it was butchered, obviously. It's a ham, but I mean, I didn't get it from a butcher or farm shop or anything like that. It was just local supermarket bought ham. What we're going to do is we're going to cut the fat off it, and we're going to use that fat to render down into lard. And I've got to stop this moving forward and backwards. That may be what I don't like about doing these videos, because I'm on picture. I don't know. But anyway. But yeah, anyway, so I'm going to cut off the fat, render that down into lard, and I'm going to cook the ham in the slow cooker, just a basic few veg and stuff. I'm going to chop up the veg quite smooth, because then once I've got the stock off that slow cooker after cooking my ham, I'm going to use that as a base for a pea soup, a ham and pea soup. Okay, now there are plenty of recipes out there where you do it all in one go. You're baking, or you're cooking your ham with all the veg, and then you take the ham out, make the soup out the rest of it, and then put the ham back in at a later point. But I'm not doing it like that, because I like to have a bit of ham for myself just as is, when it's nice and warm out of the slow cooker. So we're going to do it like that. But anyway, so away from my living room into my kitchen, and we will make a start. Obviously, a lot of the prep work will be done. You don't want to see me peeling carrots, chopping carrots, onions, etc., etc. You don't need to see me washing my hands before I do all the cooking, because, well, it's assumed that I'm doing all that anyway, isn't it? Because, well, I'm preparing food, so I'm going to be washing my hands after I handling the raw meat and the like. So after saying all that, let's get in there. I'll try to cut this video down as much as I can, cut out the nonsense, just give you what you need. And well, hello, welcome back. We're in the kitchen. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take off the netting. Okay, or strings if you have strings on your bit of ham, but whatever is holding it all together. So we're just going to cut that off, take that off, because, well, we have to get to the skin and the fat. So, and that's well stuck in the bottom, so we'll get rid of that, put that in the bin in a second. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut off the fat. We're going to have a look to see where the fat is going. There's a lot more fat on this side, look, than on that side. So it's a little bit of a guessing game. It don't matter if you get a little bit of meat on with the fat, because, well, it will all cook. And if you like that nice, like, fatty, meaty part of the pork or the ham or whatever you're using to get your fat off with, I could have used a sharper knife. I think I might swap knives before going much further with this when I am cutting up the ham, to put the ham or the fat even into the thing. So there you go, we've now got my ham. It's got a little bit of fat on, so it's still going to add a little bit of flavour to the slow cooking. And there is our small bit of fat and skin, which we're going to rend down into a little bit of lard. Now, I have got a finger which hasn't touched anything, so I'm going to put you on pause for a second. Okay, so I just washed my hands and all that. So I'm going to put the fat on one side. I'm going to do that in a minute, because I'm now going to prep to get my slow cooker going, and I'll start boiling up my ham, because obviously it's in a slow cooker. It's going to take a while, so I want that underway while I'm doing the fat on the other side of the kitchen. So there we go. I'm going to stop the video here. I'm going to prep all my stuff. Basically, what I'm going to put in my slow cooker is going to be maybe a carrot or two, probably quite finely cut, because at the end of the day, I'm wanting that stock which comes from this ham to do my pea soup. So I don't want big chunks of like half carrot or anything like that in there. nice to see just my chin talking to you then in the camera, so I've moved away a bit. I'm going to shove a celery stick in. Again, I'm going to chop that up all quite fine as well, because basically I'm going to do a soup with it. So I'm going to throw in a few herbs and spices, a bit of cinnamon, and lastly I'm going to throw in some mushrooms, but only because I got some mushrooms which are getting near the end of their life and they need to be used up, so I'm going to throw them in the soup. Okay, so plus I like mushrooms, which is always good. So I'm going to stop you there, and then you can see the wonders of my prep afterwards. Okay, so I am working loosely off a pea and ham recipe for soup. But in that they mentioned that we should be frying all our veg, and this is Primal Prepper, so I'm going to forgo that part of it. We're just going to literally put everything into the slow cooker, because, well, if you're in a situation where you are prepping or you're using your preps and things, it means the chances are something's gone wrong. Okay, you might not have electric, you might not have all the modern necessities or amenities we have in life today. So maybe you've got enough power from your solar generator to do a slow cooker for X amount of hours. So it's all being done in the slow cooker. I have got here 2 garlic cloves. They are crushed and then diced up, so they're going to go in first. I will just point out now, none of this was grown in my own garden. If you're a gardener watching this and you want to donate the veg and things for my next soup or something I do, that's okay. I threw that in before telling you what it is. We got carrot there that has been, well, basically quartered and then sliced, so that's going in. That was just 1 carrot, again not mine. I got some celery, 1 stick of celery. It was a little stick of celery. It was about, for comparison size, that big a stick of celery. I don't like celery. It goes in because, well, it's a soup, and soup has celery in most of the time. That water, what was in there, was just a little bit of water I put in with it after, because it was the first thing I prepared, and it was just to basically stop him from drying out while I was doing everything else. We have got 1 chopped onion, again quite finely chopped, and all that. And that's just going in, and most of that just went over my ham. The ham's already in there. Okay, now this is where things get a little bit interesting, okay, because we're now putting in a bay leaf, we're putting in a stick of cinnamon, and we are putting in some roughly crushed peppercorns, which I crushed in my pestle and water. But the peppercorns can go in. I don't want to keep the bay leaf in or the cinnamon in, so this is the inside of one of my teapots, okay, for when you're doing loose tea, and it keeps all the tea in there. So I'm actually going to crush my cinnamon stick up and pop that in there. Bearing in mind, when it comes to some sort of disaster, you may not actually have a cinnamon stick. Now, I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work. I might have to leave that on an angle or something, because that's going to be possibly in the way of the lid. So that's going in, and it's hopefully, the idea is, it's going to stand upright for most of the time, and it's going to stop all that stuff, the cinnamon and the bay leaf, actually getting trapped in there. I can just wake that out, put that on one side. But yeah, if it is some sort of disaster what's happened, you might be struggling to get cinnamon unless you live in that area where it's made. Okay, obviously you're a prepper if you're watching this, so you've probably gone and prepared, and you've probably got big bags of cinnamon, not these little, not these, yeah, which you get from Tesco's. This was probably about half the price of one of these. So yeah, at some point I'm going to cut all them in half, put them back in there, put them in other little pots and things to keep them airtight and that. But at the moment, because they're a bit big for what I use, but at the moment they're in an airtight bag with air in it, so they are so fresh. Plus, I don't think cinnamon really goes that bad, because, well, I think it's just like a bark off a tree. Okay, so that's all in there. I'm going to throw my peppercorns in there as well. Lastly, I'm just going to put a little bit of salt in there. There you go. I'm using some rock salt. Ordinarily, I probably won't use a grinder like this. I'll probably use some like large crystal salt, sea salt, something like that. grind it down or bash it down a little bit in my pestle and mortar, and then it goes. But for convenience, because I forgot to do that bit in the prepping, there it is. Now the last thing we have to do is just top it up with some water now, because obviously that's what it's going to be cooking in. Now this is about a litre jug, and yes, I know I'm just using water out the tap for those of you in conspiracy theory land. It's okay. Okay, why not make the most of it now? If you're worried about everything they put in the water, simply put it through your filters. Okay, obviously if you've got a spring or whatever and you get your water from that spring, that's all well and good, but I don't have a spring. I have a small little flat. All my water comes from the tap. I pay for it, so why not use it? Okay, so there we go. We've got everything in there we want. I'm now going to put the lid on. Give it a little bit of carrot, what's on the top of the lid, and see if maybe I can stand that upright and pop that there, and it just touches the lid, which is fantastic. So that will keep that all in there. Now I'm just going to plug that in. Again, this should have all been really prepped for this, and turn it on to high, and it's going to stay on high. It's only a little bit of ham, so I'm probably going to only put it on high for maybe 2 to 3 hours. And then I'm going to reduce it down onto a low. Okay, and for probably about another 2 to 3 hours. And then I'm going to put it in the oven with some sort of glaze on the top of it. Okay, bear in mind, if you are doing honey glazed hams or anything like that, yeah, most of the recipes tell you to take the skin off after you've cooked it anyway. So we're not losing out by not having that skin and fat on. Okay, now as I said, I did leave a little bit of fat on. I do like a fatty cut of meat, so yeah, I'm going to just score that bit on, put my glaze on top of that, and do my glaze, which you will see at some point in the video when I do that part of it. The more I do of this video, the more I'm thinking I'm going to add extra and extra bits in, which may make this take a bit longer to get out than I expected. I might cut it into little short ones, so you can see the lard process, you can see the slow cooking process, etc. And then do one big one for those of you who just want to watch the whole process. Anyway, obviously without the chopping up, you don't need to see that. So while I'm here in my kitchen, if you remember my first attempt of drying anything out with my dehydrator, here they are, my plums. If you remember, I dehydrated plums. Now, I didn't go overboard. I didn't put it in any special jar which keeps it airtight. I didn't put any of my oxygen absorbers in with it either. I just literally threw it in a jar and sort of, yeah, left it. And yeah, it's kind of getting a little whiffy of plum in there. It's kind of smelly. Not smelly in a bad way, but as you can see, these plums are still, if I turn that way, where the light's coming from, these plums are still perfectly okay and edible. Okay, so they're still keeping quite well, and you can let me know in the comments when I posted that last video, because I can't remember. So that's all stage 1 done. My ham's now cooking. I'm now going to get prepped up to do the lard. So here we go, lard. Quite simple, this recipe is you take your pork fat, you cut it into about 1/2 inch squares, okay, 1/2 inch cubes if it's a 1/2 inch thick, which that probably is it as thickest. So 1/2 inch cubes, 1/2 inch squares. You put it in a heavy bottomed pan, okay, add about 1/2 cup of water to it, and then you cook it on a medium heat. Okay, but we will go into a little bit more detail than that. Okay, so that's basically what we're starting at. Now, my finger is probably about, about 1/2 inch. So literally, I'm just going to score this. And if you notice, I'm scoring this with the fat side up. Okay, it didn't say anything in the recipe about doing it fat side up, because, well, it didn't. But I'm assuming we'll do it fat side up because obviously the fat is the softer point. So if you were putting the skin side up, you would be squishing all that lovely fat which we're going to render into your chopping board. Okay, and if you had like a I don't know, some sort of porous chopping board. I know there's conspiracy theorists out there as well. Yeah, we shouldn't be using wooden chopping boards, shouldn't be using plastic chopping boards. Yeah, but at the end of the day, you use what you got. And remember, this is a prepping channel. This is all about if the crap hits the fan, then, well, you're not going to really care what you're chopping your meat on, are you? Okay, as long as it's half decent. So, and you also got to remember, they were using wooden chopping boards a lot longer and a long time ago compared to plastic ones or metal ones. And also, you have to remember, some metals under certain conditions were poisonous. Okay, now for a long time people assumed tomatoes were poisonous, especially rich people. Now this is because the rich people used to eat off a metal called pewter. Okay, and pewter is, I'm not 100% sure, but I do know it has lead in it. Okay, and what was happening was the tomatoes, the acid in the tomatoes was reacting with the pewter and drawing the lead out of it. So these rich people who had their pewter plates, yeah, were getting lead poisoning from eating tomatoes. Now, obviously, they weren't thinking about possibly the pewter plate giving them the lead poisoning. All they knew was rich people eat tomatoes and then they die. So it was, put down to the poor old humble tomato. But you have to also bear in mind, a tomato is actually a poisonous plant. It comes from the deadly nightshade family. So I found my own stride here. I'm now not worried about doing a video for Primal Prepper. Yeah, it comes from the poison ivy family. No, deadly nightshade family. Other things that come from the deadly nightshade family are potatoes. And that's why you should never eat green potatoes. And you should never eat green tomatoes unless, of course, you know that those green tomatoes are the edible type. So, as a rule of thumb, if it's green coming from the deadly nightshade family, that's the bit you don't eat. So, all we're going to do is we're going to put that in there. The recipe I copied for this, or the recipe I'm using for this, is working on 2 pounds of animal fat, pork fat. Now, I say 2 pounds. For those of you in America, you're saying, hey, thanks. For those of you in Europe, you're saying, what's this pound business? What, you buy 2 pounds worth? Is that a payment? No, it's a weight. We use it over here in England. They use it over in America as well, which is all fantastic. But the rest of the world use kilos. So it's about a kilo. Okay? I believe 1 kilo is about 2¼ pounds. So, yeah. Now, it said a cup of, or half a cup of water in with that. And I think the reason why it's using, well, again, you use cups in America quite a lot, so that's fine. But it doesn't matter. That water is just there to initially stop all the fat from burning onto the bottom of the pan. Because once the water's burnt off, you will then have the fat replacing it, and that will stop the skin and any meat you have on there. Pork belly is a fine, good meat for using for this. You render off all the fat, and then you get all the nice crispy meat left out of it, because it's basically you're deep fat frying it in its own fat, which is fantastic. But so there we go. We have got our pig fat, our ham fat in the pan, all ready to go. Now I'm going to set up my cooking area, and then I will start the video again. Right, here we go. Let's do the cooking part. So my recipe says smack this on a medium heat. Okay, so my cooker is one of those lovely ones where it goes from 1 to 6. 3.5 would be the medium. 1, 2, 6, 4, yeah, or 6, 5, 4, 3. Somewhere in between 4 and 3 is a medium heat, but unfortunately it don't go for half heat, so we can't do that. So, okay, so yeah, heavy bottom pan, medium heat. What I have to do is just literally now just let this cook. Okay. Obviously we're not going to sit here and wait ages and ages while that is doing. So while we're waiting, yeah, not that it's going to actually kill much of the time, yeah, I like going around finding stones. Okay, I have lots of stones. You may have saw some on the windowsill in the last. I should have really cleaned all that down before doing the first part of this video. But this is a flint I found. Okay, and I was intrigued by this flint because when I was looking at it, I had this little line in there, and I thought, oh, that's got something in there. So I cracked it open, and what I found in here is something what resembles tissue paper. Okay, now obviously this tissue paper was not put into this flint afterwards, and it's not tissue paper, it's probably some calcium deposit which has managed to work its way through the little fracture, and that is why the flint cracked where it was. But it just fascinated me, the fact that it looks like tissue paper. And again, flint is made from volcanic lava and eruption. Should I get my kettle out of the way so you don't see that in the corner? Yeah, which means it couldn't have, if it was tissue paper, it couldn't have gone in there. I say tissue paper, I say like kitchen roll paper more than tissue paper. Okay, because here we go, here's my bit of kitchen roll. Yeah, I don't know how well you can see it on there, but does it look similar? It's got the little speckly bits on it. So yeah, it just fascinated me how it came about, and I do that quite a lot. Anyway, that's another little bit of a filler while I'm letting this heat up. You can see the smoke coming off my dirty hob, because I don't actually use this one this particular one much in my general cooking, which means it gets a little bit of fat splattered on it, and obviously I didn't clean enough of it off. So yeah, this still ain't even bubbling yet. It ain't doing anything. So I'm going to put you on pause until it starts doing something, and then we can have a little look-see at what it's doing. Okay, as you can see, it's steaming nicely. I think setting 4 was probably a little bit too hard for it, so I've dropped it down to setting 1, and I'm just going to give it a quick stir so nothing sticks to the bottom of the pan, and also it gets like the bigger chunks of fat into the water a little bit. Hopefully that's the idea. So now we are just literally going to render this down. We're just going to keep doing this, stirring it from time to time, moving it all around, making sure nothing's sticking to the bottom of the pan. Eventually that water is going to boil off, and with any luck the fat will come out of, be rendered out of the hard form it is in. Okay, so it's kind of like making cheese in reverse, I suppose, or butter in reverse. Obviously you take butter, you put it in the heat, it melts back down to its original, well, not its original state, but it melts down back into an oil. Yeah, but butter comes from milk, as you know. And there's another video I might do one day. Get some butter, churn some, or get some milk, churn it into butter, and see what that is. Or cheese, if you're interested. If you want to watch me make butter or cheese, let me know in the comments, and we can do that as well. Because obviously, yeah, the whole idea of my Primal Prepper video, the name of it, not video, channel, the name of it is, the idea is, well, what do you do if nothing comes back? Okay, what if a supervolcano goes off and wrecks civilization as we know it, and it's just pockets of humanity surviving the best they can around the world, or across the world if you're a flat earther. And yeah, so it's like you have to, well, most of us will relearn what our ancestors done years and years and years and years ago, generations ago. Where this video is kind of trying, or this channel is kind of trying to give you the heads up on that, let you learn how to do these things while you still can in modern society, with a cooker, with decent pots and pans, instead of having to make some sort of utensil out of stone and all that wonderful malarkey. Because at the end of the day, yeah, my pestle and mortar here is just a big massive chunk of granite. Sit that on that hob. Eventually that hob will get that warm enough to do what we're doing here. Okay, it's a little bit harder to control the temperature. I turn the temperature down, it's still increasing in the temperature, so it's a little harder. And this is the sort of stuff, hopefully we'll be learning. Well, I'll be looking into making sugar, because that is something which at the moment you can just buy from the shops and have stocked up in your pantry, but it's only a short-term stock up, isn't it? Because eventually sugar gets used quite a lot in preserves, as well as just making things sweeter, putting in your coffee. It's going to run out. You're going to have to know how to make sugar, and if you want to make alcohol, you need sugar. If you want to make alcohol, you need to know where the yeast comes from, so how to make the yeast. If you're making alcohol, you need to know... No, that's it, pretty much. Sugar and alcohol, sugar and yeast. But if you're making bread, yeah, and do you know how to get the wheat or the flour out of the wheat? Do you know how to get your sugar, how to get the bread yeast? Okay, there's a reason that there is a thing called potato bread, because one of the ways to get the yeast is using potato. Okay, so that's one way. All these wonderful things we'll be exploring, and this is the first step in it. We're making lard. And why lard? Okay, yes, in modern society it's not seen as a nice healthy fat or anything, but it comes in good for preserving stuff. Okay, I've seen, you may have seen a few videos on YouTube as well, where, I'll get down a bit, so here you go. How's that? You can see my face as well now. I'm kneeling on the floor for you. But, and I would just point out as well, we are going to be dealing with bubbling hot fat soon. So I won't be here for long, because I'm right close to it. So take care when you're doing things like this. But, what was I saying? I don't know. I can't remember. I went off on a tangent, didn't I? So yeah. Oh yeah, lard. So I'm sure you've seen videos, little short ones, about a minute and a half long, where people take a bit of meat and can it. The Americans call it canning. Basically, you put it in a jar, fill it up with, well, whatever, bit of meat. I'm thinking of throwing some veg in there as well, so you have meat and veg. You put it in a jar, you boil it off to cook it in a pan. Yeah, the jar's in the pan. It's a bit like doing a steamed pudding. And then you pour the hot lard over the top of it, and it forms a seal. And then you put your lid on, boil it a bit more to bring that down, and fantastic. It seals that meat in for ages, because the main thing that anyone who is trying to preserve food has to fight against is sunlight, oxygen, and moisture. Okay, that lard, as long as you keep it, whatever you've done in a dark place, will keep that off there, keep the sunlight out, is keeping it in a dark place, it will keep the moisture out, and it will keep the oxygen out, because it forms a barrier. State while we're making lard. And a lot of people, well, they don't like their fatty meat, okay? I do. I think this is a waste. I'd much rather cook that and eat that on my bit of ham with a bit of flavour from my glazing. But yeah, some people, well, they randomly cut this stuff off all the time. Ow, that landed on my leg. They randomly cut this off all the time and then throw it in the bin. Because, well, it's not healthy, it's not good for me. In fact, I work with a guy who won't do that. I quite often, we're having meals, I work away a lot, so we have meals in the pub, and I quite often eat the fatty bits that people to cut off their gammons and things, because, well, that's where all the flavour is, that's the nice bit. It shows, I know, and obviously I have to do something about that at some point, but one step at a time, eh? I'm making lard today, and also cooking ham. So, okay, so I'm going to rend this down a little bit more, and then let you have a look at it again. In fact, I'll just quickly move the camera now so you can have a look at it from on top of, hopefully, and see what it looks like without steaming up my camera at this stage of the game. And we will have a look at what it looks like in a little bit more. Okay, I put the camera back there, so that's roughly in place. And yeah. Well, okay, we've now got to the point where all the water has evaporated off, and there's not much in the way of fat in the pan at the moment. So, I don't know if I'm doing this right or not. It is my first time, so we'll see. I am going to just turn it down a little bit more though, because, well, I'd rather it take longer than me ending up with a load of burnt fat on the bottom of my pan. So I am still stirring it every now and then to stop it from sticking. The other thing I've done is where the skin and fat has got softer within the heat of the boiling water, I slice through the fat just with my spatula. Okay, so there's not so much fat on the skin anymore, as you can see here. Okay, yeah, not so much fat on that skin. At the end of the day, hopefully there'll be no fat on that skin, and it would all be lovely, lovely lard. The other thing is, I'm not entirely sure ham lard or ham fat actually works like this. So if this don't work, I might have to try it again with a nice roasting pork joint. How about that? In fact, I think I might have one in the freezer, so I can take that out and defrost it if this one don't work. But then you'll have to wait and see how that one works out. Okay, so while we're waiting for this to render down, I will be honest here, I have just put a little splash of water in there. It was warm water out of the kettle. Okay, to just, I don't know, I just felt it needed a little bit more. So maybe I'm just not going to get as much lard out of this as I thought I was going to get. I don't know, it didn't really tell me the quantities in the recipe. It didn't say like 2 pounds of fatty meat is going to give you half a litre of lard or anything like that. So I don't know, I'm a little bit in the dark with that. But while I'm waiting, what I'm going to do is get one of my jars. It's been washed, it's been cleaned. It was a pickle jar, because my son does like pickles in his burgers and things. So I'm actually going to put my celery sticks, because if you remember in the soup we're doing, I had celery. I don't like celery, I may have mentioned that, but we're going to put them in that jar there. They were in a bowl of water, again to keep them sort of like fresher, and then we're just going to literally top that jar up with water. Again, it's just tap water. You can use pure water if you want, it's absolutely fine. We're not going to do anything with these other than just leave them in a jar of water in the fridge. Okay, for the simple fact that this should keep it longer. Obviously, even in a fridge, it's going to start losing its moisture, dehydrate and the like. So yeah, so that's going in a jar in my fridge. And the other thing is, while it's in a jar in the fridge, you can stack on top of other jars. When it's in a packet, well, you put things on top of it, the weight is going to start damaging it. So give this a little stir again. I think the stirring is quite important, and possibly, I don't know, maybe a stainless steel pan could be better. This one's quite an old pan. It has a couple of patches on it where it's been abused in the years, and things stick to that area now. I don't. This isn't a non-stick pan. It ain't a Teflon or anything like that. It's like a, I don't know, a glaze. You tell me. It's quite old. What did they used to put on it? Enamel, I'm thinking. So we'll give it another little stir. Now this process, according to the recipe, does take up to about 2 odd hours. And if I just take that off the heat there and get that up to there, so the camera, there you go, you can see I have got a little bit of lard in the bottom corner there, or a little bit of fat anyway. So I have also turned it down a little bit more. It's now on setting 2, and this fat should bubble. Okay, it shouldn't be boiling. There shouldn't be any vapor or anything coming off from the fat or steam or anything like that. There shouldn't be any smoke, because we're not trying to burn it off. But the fat in the bottom of the pan should just like bubble nicely, a gentle boil, so to speak. So again, I bet you're glad I keep cutting the video now, aren't you? Because this would be a really boring video, watching me stir my fat round for 2 hours. Well, okay, we are probably somewhere between about 30 to 40 minutes into this little experiment of mine. Okay, and I don't know if it's just because I was being impatient or whatever, but all of a sudden it went. Maybe it was where I turned the heating down. So let me just, I'll keep hold of that, okay? So putting it down. So let's just have a little look-see now. I have no idea if you can see that very well because I've got my camera around the wrong way. So I have to be looking at what its direction is filming. So that's the sort of bubbly texture you want when it's bubbling. And as you can see, a lot of that is actually sitting in there. And if I just stir that around a bit, oh, and it's spitting at me, yeah, everything's backwards. You can see that a lot of the big chunks of fat, what were on the skin, which I did slice off with the spatula, have shrunk down. Okay, so it is pretty much just getting to the point where it's leaving the skin. And in my pan, we're probably looking at about 1/4 of an inch deep worth of fat. Okay, for you in Europe and younger people in England, that's about 6 millimeters, half a centimeter. Okay, so yeah, there is still a little bit of fat in there on some of the skin, so I'm just going to leave it a little longer. And I don't know if you noticed, but the skin was starting to crisp up a little bit as well. So I will, well, just keep going with it and show you the finished results, hopefully. And I am kind of really hoping that by doing this, the skin will become a little bit like a pork crackling, or like a, what's the other word it's called, a pork scratching type thing. Be nice and crispy and all that. I'll probably put that out and dry that out on a bit of tissue paper, but obviously in the end times you wouldn't have tissue paper, so maybe a tea towel or something like that. So I'm just gonna turn you off again and we'll see it in a bit. Okay, I think we're nearly there. Most of the main fatty bits have gone. It's left a tiny little bit. It's crackling. I don't know if you can hear that on the mic. And like starting to spit at me. It's not boiling or anything like that. I think this is literally the skin starting to crisp up. And so what I'm going to do, the recipe says spoon this out as it starts to pull. Well, I'm not sure what that means. And a friend of mine who actually worked as a cook in a kitchen weren't sure what that means. I'm kind of assuming where it stops bubbling and leaves like little pools of unbubbling fat, and that's where you spoon it out from. But I'm just going to pour this into my jar. Now, I'm using a jar. You might want to use something metal. Obviously, there is a case of heat shock, which can happen. All I've done with that honey jar there was I just left that on top there, just in case it decided it wanted to float out and tip over. Because I didn't want water inside my tin, my jar. But I've left it in the hot water. That's warmed up. That should stop any sort of heat shock. Bearing in mind this is probably quite hot, probably a lot hotter than 100 degrees, so it might still all go wrong. So let's have a little look see anyway. Let's get all that into the fat there so it don't accidentally fall in. And I'm just going to literally use my spatula there to hold back the skin and stuff and pour in that wonderful golden looking lard. I don't know if you can see that from that distance. Hey, pause the video, zoom into it, have a look. Take a screenshot if you want. That's okay. Now what I'm going to do with this is put that back on there for a little while longer. There is next to no fat in there whatsoever. I'm going to take that off the heat, or turn the heat off. It's just the residual heat of my element cooling down. I'm going to sprinkle some sugar. No. Ooh. That's an interesting one. Maybe that's a Freudian slip. Maybe we should be sprinkling sugar over here. Help caramelise it or something. I'm just going to put a little bit of salt over that. Again. And good, well, it should be salty as it is. And then just sort of mix it round a little bit. The skin is still quite soft. And that's why I'm just literally using the heat of the pan. And hopefully the heat of the pan will just crisp it up enough. And I'll put the salt on and then just like, yeah, that should be all around on that now. So I'm just going to leave that in there. Keep an eye on it, make sure it don't burn or anything, as I show you our lard. There you go. So you saw how big our bit of skin was, and we got this lovely golden colour there. It is very hot. I was right, that was a lot hotter than the water I was using to warm that up with. And for a size comparison of my size of my jar there, because I have no idea about pound jars and half-pound jars and quart jars and litre jars and anything. There you go, a pot noodle pot. We all have pot noodles. This is just a regular one, it's not a king size one. There we go. So you can see the pot noodle pot in comparison to that jar. Okay, or I suppose a small mixing bowl. There you go. So you may have noticed I put the tea towel down. That was just in case I had any spillages or in case the glass decided to crack open. I'm not going to put this in a pan, boil it up, seal the lid proper, because, well, at the end of the day, it's lard. This will be plenty good enough. This is the top part of that, and I will put that on. Okay, so I'm just literally going to scrape that round a little bit more and then let that cool. I'm going to put that on a bit of tissue paper or a tea towel or something, kitchen roll, not tissue paper, and spread that out and see how that goes once I've done that. And then you will see the finished result of that. I'll try a bit, see if I over salted it or didn't have enough on there, and see if it's crispy or if it's just crap. Yep, and obviously when the ham gets done, we will see the results of the ham. When the soup gets done, we'll see the results of the soup. Now the soup shouldn't take nowhere near as long as the recipe suggests, because I'm pre-cooking the ham in it. Okay, the recipe is put everything in. Oh shit, I didn't put the mushrooms in. I'll put them in now. In a second. You don't need to see me do that. You just need to know I'll put mushrooms in it. But anyway, so yeah, that's that. The recipe was you cook it all in one go. Then you take the ham out, and then you mash it up, and then you shred the ham, then you put it in. If you want the recipe, I will type it out or send you a link to where I found it. Obviously, just let me know in the comments. The actual recipe for me, I'm winging it. I wing my cooking. I use a recipe as a guide, not the gospel of what you have to do. Okay, so just like this, my recipe didn't say anything about leaving all the bits of skin in there and try to crisp them off and turn them into crackling. So that's what I'm doing with that. So yeah, I will show you the results as and when, but for you it'll all just be one video. For me, this is probably going to go into the morning sometime. So, okay, the ham has finished cooking. I've just put it on a warm setting just to keep it on tick over while I'm doing everything else. Okay, so I have already made the glaze to go on top. Oh, there you go, you can see it there. That's in my jug, ready to go. And I've got my tray ready for it. I might need a bigger tray now I'm thinking about it. I'll have a look for one of them in a second. The glaze was quite easy. 150 millilitres of maple syrup. Okay, that's about what, 3/5 to 2/3 of this bottle. Okay, I don't know what size bottles you get it in, or what that would convert to in American. Maybe about, I don't know, 3/4 of a cup. 2 tablespoons of whole grain mustard, and some red wine vinegar. Which brings us on to another couple of things. Do you know how to make red wine vinegar? Obviously the whole grain mustard, you need mustard seeds. So that's taken care of that. I'm going to just find a bigger tray. I'll put you on pause while I find a bigger tray. Bigger tray. Right, okay. Yes, I know it's an aluminium tray. You tend to recycle a lot of things. I probably had, I don't know, something cooked in it when I got it originally, and I kept hold of the tray, cleaned it out, ready for reuse. Okay. So, sliding that out of the way. There you go. There is our lard. It is all set. That's set at room temperature. Okay, it's not falling out or anything. It stays quite solid at room temperature, which is good. Okay, that's another beauty of making lard. Right, so let's just get our ham out. I've already preheated, or I'm preheating the oven as I started making this and everything and getting set up for the video. So the oven's preheating. It's set at 190 degrees Celsius. So that be, according to my calculator on the phone, somewhere in the region of 374 Fahrenheit. That sounds a bit on the high side to me, but that's what it said it was. Okay, I'm no expert. I know there is some sort of way around that and working it all out and everything, but I don't know the formula off the top of my head. I always thought it was only about 39 degrees higher. Or is it I don't know, 2/3 of what it is plus 39. I can't remember. Anyway, so here is our ham. It has stayed together quite nicely. Didn't need the strings around it at all. And we're going to put the ham in our tray, but it's going to fall over. I might have got away with that smaller tray, you know. After all that, I'm going to just cut a little bit off the bottom of that ham to try to make it stand better. And it'll give me something to nibble on as well in a second. I have washed up everything from earlier, but haven't got round to drying it up yet. So let's just cut a little bit off the bottom of the ham and see if, let's hold that bit. This is probably where the string would come in handy on there. Keeping, look at that, it falls apart, that's great. Okay, now let's stand it up. Excuse fingers. We take that out and we will stick that. I ain't got anywhere to stick it at the moment. This is good. I'm a prepper, believe it or not. It's okay. I had a plate nearby. We'll stick that on there. Just out there, out of the way, with the knife and that. In fact, we need the knife still because we've got to score the fat to let our glaze go into something. Oh, pulled most of the fat off apparently. And we want to pour half of this over our ham, over the fatty part of our ham. Lovely, maybe a little bit more. Excellent. And again, it doesn't matter if you use a little bit more, a little bit less, it's all fine. Yeah, it all comes out in the wash at the end of the day, doesn't it? So there we go, we'll put that in there. Now, the reason I've used a little baking tray is because I have learned from doing this in the past, if you use a big baking tray, a lot of the juices from the glaze itself, when it runs off the ham, when it gets hot, tends to caramelise and really is hard to wash up afterwards. So, and I am a bit on the lazy side. I don't like having to do lots of hard work if I don't have to. So I've used a smaller tray, hopefully put in a smaller area for that to run into, and yeah, and then it won't caramelise or burn on so much to my tray. If it does, it's okay. It's a cheap aluminium thing. I can throw it away. But again, that's not the point. Right, so we got my soup stock there. It's all steaming away quite nicely. I'm going to jack that back up onto the high heat because I am now about to put the peas in. Now, I haven't got the peas, what the recipe said I should be using. I have just got frozen garden peas. And that's why I'm jacking the heat back up, because obviously that's going to bring the temperature of my soup down. So I'm going to then put the lid back on that and just let that bubble away quite nicely, probably for another couple of hours on hot, because the idea is I want to try to get those peas all soft and mushy in there. And I might mush them up, I might make it like a pureed soup, or I might keep it as a bit of a chunky. I don't know yet. Now my ham's in the oven. That's going to stay in there for the better part of 15 minutes, and then we're going to take it out, put the rest of the glaze on top of it, and then put it back in there. Obviously, you'll get videos of me doing this, and you probably notice that the bit of ham left on that plate has gone missing, because that will be eaten during that time. And yeah, and then later on, we'll see what my pea soup is like in a couple of hours, but it will only be a few seconds for you, as the video will stop and then restart again when I'm ready. So that ham didn't last long at all. But you can really taste the garlic in that. I don't normally put garlic in my ham when when I'm doing it. Normally because the recipes just don't ask for it. But I thought, well, hell, I'm going to throw some garlic in. I like garlic. And I don't know if that's just where the ham was resting on my crushed garlic, because that was the first thing I threw in there. Or if it was, I don't know, just garlicky all the way through. We'll find out when I do the rest of the ham. Not entirely sure how that garlic's going to work with the glaze, so we'll find out. Okay, before we go again, this is, I don't know if you can see it that well. There we go, we put it here. These are my skinny crispy bits. Now, these didn't turn out really crispy, like proper crackling. Some bits have, some bits haven't. I quite like a chewy bit of crackling. I like a crunchy bit of crackling, but I like a chewy bit of crackling. It was perfect for me. It was all crispy around the edges, and then like in the middle part of it, it was a little bit chewy. I had to spend like a minute or so chewing on it to get it gone. That was nice. That's perfect for me. If you want more crackling, you just leave it on the heat for a bit longer, crackling up. It's that simple. So that's a little bonus from it. You get some little pork scratchings. Okay, I'll put them back over there out of the way. That weren't all of them. I have been picking on them throughout the day while I've been doing other things as well. Okay. Okay, so it's time to take it out of the oven for the first time. Pour the rest of the glaze onto it. So let's grab that. Okay. I don't know if you can see if I pull that there, and I just hold that up a little bit. You can see where it's all nicely bubbling and caramelizing on the tray. And if you can imagine that spread over a bigger tray, that would be a lot more burn than that. So, and I know that from experience. We put the rest of that on. Lovely jubbly. This might be a little bit too much glaze for this, because it's only a little ham, remember that. It's like normally about, well, that's about half the size of what I would normally be cooking. But I thought, as I was only doing it to do the lard video, it didn't really matter. So I'll put that back in there. And after all, it's just me here, so I don't need a massive ham. That'll probably be enough to see me for about a week. But anyway, well, it won't, because probably half of that will be going in the pea soup. But the pea soup is going to be then a week or so's worth of meal as well. Obviously, it won't be just sitting on the side there. I will probably portion it up and put it in the freezer. But still, there you go. Well, okay then, let's have a look at my finished ham, shall we? And then it is just literally, oh, that is nice. The soup left to go. So, here we go. I'm standing in my own light. It's about right. So there's my ham, all nice and done. All the juicy glaze is still running in there. Normally that would be like black baked stuff on my tray. So I'm happy with that. Okay, I'm just going to let this rest for about 10-15 minutes. Let it cool down a little bit. Stop it bubbling, then give it a little try. Yeah, I maybe could have left it in there a little bit shorter. The mustard seeds on the top there are starting to sort of just blacken off, but at the end of the day, it's all just a big guessing game, innit? So yeah, there we go. End of this part of the video. Just the pea soup to go, and we'll see how that finishes off. Well, we got to the last little bit. To be fair, I turned this off and went to bed last night, early time. I say early, I mean early in the morning, not early in the night. And what I done was I mashed up the soup a little bit. No, it's not hugely mashed. It's not like liquidized or anything like that. It was just literally like your standard potato masher. And while it was still cold, and then I put it on just to heat it up. I'm going to put the ham in, and then I'm just going to put it on warm, so it'll be nice and warm for me at lunchtime to have it. So, and well, maybe that'll be another video then, maybe, because maybe I'll do a tasting one. But anyway, just have a little look-see in there. You probably can't see much, and the steam one there is probably steaming up my camera. So I'm just going to put it on pause for a second. There you go, we're back. So literally just going to whack in the ham, going to put it onto heat, and then that'll be it. That is the last of the ham, by the way. I picked at it last night because, well, I'm a bit of a picker. Just give it a quick stir up and mix that in. Actually, if I do that, you can actually see, hopefully, it looks a bit better. There you go. See, that's what it's going to sort of look like when it gets dished up. So, there we go. I'll put that on to warm, to keep that warm. For me, put the lid back on there. We have a little taste at lunchtime, and that'll be the video wrapped. Maybe, I don't know. Well, welcome back. The ham and pea soup, lovely. It is very tasty, I have to admit. It's a little bit on the salty side, but that's to be expected. It's a ham soup after all. And I did put a little bit of extra salt in. It seems to have a little bit of a spicy back kick to it as you eat it. I can only assume that is the peppercorn, which was in there. And maybe the mustard seeds from the ham, when I roasted the ham. Pretty much all the ham, what was left over after I ate it, went in there, as you saw at the beginning, like earlier on in the video. There you go. Look, see, there's one of the peppercorns. That has like opened right up and is quite soft to the touch. You wouldn't notice you're eating one. Let's put it that way. Not crunchy. Obviously, I'm not going to eat it on the microphones because that would just sound disgusting. But yeah, take my word for it. It's a nice soup. It is a little bit on the watery side. If you had a liquidizer or something like that, perhaps blend it down a bit further would be nice as well. But well, soup comes as soup comes, doesn't it? So it's at the end of the day, food is actually there to make you survive, not necessarily be really tasty. Yes, my hair's a mess. I've been doing gardening. I've been doing videos for the garden. You might see it later on after this one comes out. You might see it before this one comes out. But, and if you did see the gardening, yeah, my worktop was a state because I decided to do the seeding inside because it was a bit windy outside and I didn't want the wind to interfere. But anyway, that's a different video. This is my ham video. So there you go. I hope you try all this out. I hope you're trying to make your own lard. Drop in the comments if you do. Let me know any little tips or things you find out from doing your lard, or if you do lard generally, let me know about it. Let me know what you think of my soup. If you want a recipe, drop that in the comments. I will knock up the recipe of what I've done. Obviously, a lot of it's guesswork, okay? Because I'm working from a prepping point of view. Yeah, it's end times. It's going to be guesswork, okay? You might divide up your rations or what stock you have left to put into the soup, so you can make 4 batches of it or something like that. At the end of the day, it's what you have, and that's what I done. Okay, God, I didn't fry off any of the onions or anything like that either, did I? Anyway. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hit the like button on your way out. Let me know that you enjoyed the video. If you didn't enjoy the video, you can hit the thumbs down. But let me know in the comments what you didn't like about it so I can put that into practice in future videos. My beard's a state as well. That needs a good trim. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, subscribe to my channel. Somewhere round about there, maybe, will be a little button you can press if you're watching it on a mobile phone that will subscribe to my channel. There may even be a link coming up on the end screen as well for my gardening one, because they sort of cross over because I've done them both at the same time or within the same days. And I'm now going to enjoy the rest of my soup. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to hear what it sounds like when I'm eating that soup, drop that in the comments. I might do a video for you.